one question that every new cyclist has in his mind is which cycle to invest in, a geared cycle or a non-geared cycle. In this video, we'll be sharing with you all the differences between a geared and a non-geared cycle and which one you should invest in if you are starting out with cycling. But before we start, we would like to thank Fast Enough for collaborating with us for the Beginner Cyclist series. Fast Enough makes nutritional supplements to take care of your pre, intra and post-workout needs. Check out the link to their products on the Cyclop India website. We have left a link in the description box below. So let us start off by taking a look at these two cycles. Both the red cycles look very similar, but one of them is a geared cycle and the other one a cycle without any gears. So let's look at all the visible differences between these two types of cycles. In a non-geared cycle, all you have are brake levers on the handlebar and two chain rings that enable the chain to move and help you move forward on the cycle. That's it. The cycle is a simple piece of machinery which does not have any complexity on it. When you compare this cycle to a geared cycle, this one has a lot more components compared to the one that we just saw. In a geared cycle, you will have a cassette at the back which has a group of sprockets. You can have one or more chain rings in the front between which the chain moves. To help the chain move, there are one or two derailleurs that are installed in a gear cycle. One derailleur at the back and one derailleur at the front. A derailleur is something like this, which you see here, which actually derails the chain from one sprocket to another when you press a shifter. In this cycle, there are two derailleurs which will help you shift between a combination of 21 gears, 3 gears in the front and 7 gears in the back. The movement of these derailleurs is initiated by shifters that are mounted along with the brakes on the handlebar. So there you see 4 to 5 extra components on a geared cycle which make it a little more complex at first glance. The next question that comes in mind is, what do these gears actually do? People think that having gears in a cycle will enable them to cycle fast. But actually what gears do is kind of regulate the amount of effort that you have to put in to move forward on the cycle. Now let's talk about what these gear ratios actually mean. What does a 27 speed cycle mean? What does a 22 speed cycle mean? If the chain is on the smallest sprocket at the front and the biggest sprocket at the back, that is the easiest gear ratio you can ride in. And if the chain ring is at the biggest sprocket at the front and the smallest sprocket at the back, that will be the hardest gear to ride in. So that is the flexibility that you get on a geared cycle. So now, since we have had a closer look at both these bikes from a mechanical standpoint, we'll be talking about factors that you should definitely consider if you are deciding between buying a geared and a non-geared cycle. So the first thing that you need to consider is ease of use. A non-geared cycle is super easy to ride and keep home. You do not have to constantly think about being in the right gear. You do not have to think about whether the chain is making that crackling noise when you change those gears. It is a very simple machine. Sit on it and ride for as long as you want without thinking about any hassles whatsoever. But compared to this, riding a geared cycle, you have to constantly change gears and ensure that the chain is in top condition to ensure that the gear changes are smooth at all times. Next up, let's talk about maintenance. For a non-geared cycle, you just need to worry about oiling your chain once a month. That's all that is required to keep your simple non-geared cycle in top shape forever. But on a geared cycle, beyond keeping your chain well lubricated, you also need to take care of the expensive components that are there on such a cycle. Components like derailleurs and shifters are expensive components, and if you fall on your MTB or on a road bike, these can cost thousands of rupees to get replaced. You also need to take care of the type of lube you are using to lubricate the chain. There are multiple types of lubes available in the market. Lubes like a dry lube, a wet lube or a ceramic lube. These lubes are specific for the conditions that you plan to ride in. These lubes will ensure that your chain and the chain set remains in top shape and you do not have to spend thousands of rupees in replacing them. Next up, let's talk about the price difference between a non-geared and a geared cycle. When you are out in the market to buy your first cycle, buying a non-geared cycle seems a very attractive proposition because non-geared cycles start from as low as 7,000 or 8,000 rupees, while geared cycles at a minimum start at around 15 to 16,000 rupees. So if price is the only constraint or factor that you're looking at, non-geared cycles are the way to go. But if you are wanting to be in cycling for the long haul and just not cycle during the pandemic but beyond that as well, then you should definitely consider buying a geared cycle because of the benefits that it offers. The speed at which you pedal or the number of pedal strokes that you make in a minute is called cadence. And a geared cycle really helps you maintain an optimal cadence when you're going up an incline. When going up on a non-geared cycle, you often face a situation where you stall in the middle of the ascent. On a geared cycle, you can maintain the optimal cadence thanks to the gears that are there and keep on riding up without stalling in between. While off-roading, the key is maintaining momentum, even if you are doing it in a slow pace when you are crossing obstacles or crossing streams. If you plan to do long distance riding on your cycle, then a geared cycle these days makes a lot of sense. Although people have been clocking hundreds of kilometers on their old Atlas non-geared cycles for years, nowadays doing long distances on a geared cycle is much more comfortable. Imagine that you are doing a 100-kilometer ride and after 50 kilometers your legs are almost giving up because of the constant effort that you are putting in. What you can do at that time is shift to a relatively easier gear, which will ensure that you keep on moving forward without putting much effort into pedaling. An easier gear will help you increase the cadence and help you relax the muscles that have been fatigued by putting in that initial hard effort. If the primary reason for you buying a cycle is losing weight, then you can make a do with either of these cycles. But I would any day recommend a geared cycle for losing weight because it gives you a lot of flexibility. By flexibility, I mean that if you are riding on a flat road that does not have any gradient, you can change the level of effort that you are putting in. You can either convert that riding session into a spinning session where you can ride at very high cadence, or you can increase the gears and increase the effort that you are using to pedal through and make it a high-speed sprint session. So a geared cycle would any day offer a lot of flexibility, but you can also lose weight while riding a non-geared cycle as well. That being said, losing weight will actually depend a lot on the diet that you're taking. Cycling is just one tool that can help you burn additional calories throughout the day. So those were some pointers that you should definitely consider if you're out in the market to buy your first cycle. We would definitely recommend buying a geared cycle if you want to get started with cycling and be there in the sport for the long run. If you are a kid who is unsure of how to use gears, or you want a very simple riding experience, say for a 2 to 3 month period, then a non-geared cycle is okay. But for the long run, a geared cycle will give you much more flexibility, a lot more options and a lot more excitement. That's it for this video. If you like the content of this video, hit the like button and subscribe to the Cyclop India YouTube channel. Till the next one, bye-bye.